last week? What did we learn about sellers? What is the importance of listings? Do you remember? What can you have more of? What can you have more of? More listings or more buyers? Yeah, you can handle more listings at one time than you can buyers. And actually, if you're dual career, some of you are, sellers are easier with your bandwidth. It's just in the beginning, many times as new agents, we find buyers first because they're a little bit easier to find. And what I mean, hi, Mark. What I mean by that is that they usually have to raise their hand to continue the journey. Does that make sense? So if most buyers start looking at houses here online, right? And then when they want to physically go see houses, what's their next step? Most likely. Open house. Because you don't need an agent to see an open house, but are all listings held open? No, they are not. And so for them to continue their journey, they have to raise their hand and say, I need an agent. Does that make sense? Whereas sellers, while they're preparing their house to sell, they don't have to, they should, but they don't have to reach out to an agent right away to continue in getting ready. Make sense? So sometimes the sellers just aren't as obvious, bless you. You will get in the habit of seeing a dumpster or like a dumpster in somebody's driveway and think, are they moving? Seriously, we're doing that Sunday and my husband's like, you think they're moving? So you'll start thinking, wow, should I go talk to them? Or are they just remodeling? I don't know. Let's find out. So there are just not as many obvious signs when it comes to a seller. And they can lay low a little bit easier than a buyer can to go on this journey until they want to put it on the market. So what we talked about last week are the steps to working with a buyer. What are some of the steps? Do you remember some of those steps that we talked about last week? Thank you so much, Jeff. Ellie doesn't have one and Mark doesn't have one. You're awesome. Thank you. Do you remember some of those steps? What do we do? Oh, yes. What do we do first? We pre-qualify. And usually that's a telephone call. They're saying, hey, either through a phone call, a text message, or you bump into them. They say, hey, we're thinking about selling our house. Then you want to do some pre-qualifying. Why's that? Why would you want to pre-qualify? Why wouldn't you just jump to the listing presentation to see where they're at? Not everybody's worth your time. So what are some other reasons? Pre-qualify. Timeline. What's their timeline? Price point, motivation. You take good notes, Tatum. She says she writes everything down on there. And I believe it. So you do the pre-qualifying because you got to make sure you understand what they're wanting to achieve before you meet with them. Because how are you going to come up with a plan, a marketing plan and a pricing strategy if you don't know some basic things about them? Then what is the second step? I say, after you do that pre-qualifying, pre-listing information, send that. Yep. Oh, I got people. Thank you. Then what? Because I give them homework. I need information from them in order to do a powerful listing presentation that isn't just surface. It's actually got meat on the bone and it applies to them and their house. Then what am I doing after I send them that homework? Preview. Why don't we go preview the house? Why would that be necessary? Why don't I just jump to the listing presentation? Accurate comps. What else, Caitlin? Say it louder. Market rate. Yeah, you've got to know. Remember what I said, the outside of a house does not really indicate what the inside looks like. And that can be a good or bad surprise. And I don't like surprises. I really don't. I really don't. I'm the person who, this is terrible, but it's okay for, I don't care about spoilers. Like somebody said, oh, I don't want to tell you about that. It'd be a spoiler. I'm like, I don't care. I'll watch it anyway. And sometimes when I'm watching, especially a true to life story, I will look it up while I'm watching it. I'll Google it because I want to know the end. Because I know this might sound weird, but I enjoy it more if I know where we're going. I don't like surprises. And some of you are like, I'd never want to know that. I'm okay with it. It doesn't spoil it for me. Actually, yeah. I'm not guessing what's going to happen next. So that's why you do that preview, so you don't have surprises. So you've got to really know what your process is going to be when you work with sellers. And it should be a process that you have in place for all sellers and all buyers. So whether it's the exact steps that I mapped out to you, or you do something different, but you need to have a process how you do this, because the magic of building a referral-only business is providing amazing client experiences. And if you don't have any consistency in how you provide a client experience, you're just hitting and missing. And you might forget something. If you've noticed, real estate is not hard, but it's not easy. Meaning there are so many steps to working with a seller. There's so many steps to working with a buyer, and then go under contract. And there are a zillion little things that you have to be aware of. And it's easy, or it's easier if you just have one client. What are you going to do when you have 5 at one time? And if you don't have that process and procedure in place, you're going to find it very unsettling, and something's going to fall through the cracks. It can fall through the cracks even when you do have a policy and procedure in which you follow, because things happen. We're human. So today we're going to go through the actual listing appointment. We touched on it last week. We're going to go more in detail. And then on Thursday, you're going to be knee deep in practicing scripts and scenarios on Thursday. So let's get into our listing appointment. Let me go into the slideshow. Okay. Our objectives are mastering the flow. How should this appointment go? And I'm going to map out, like I did last week, some best practices. But remember, it's not written in stone. You're going to find out what's going to be your magic flow and what works for you. But in the beginning, you need something to follow. Do you? Don't you? Because you don't quite know yet. You don't quite know. Okay. Okay, so I need to make copies and check. You sure?
How many do you want?
Why don't we do 4?
Okay.
So we're going to talk about mastering the flow, because you come in the door and then what do? Right? You got to know how to lead this conversation, how to lead this. You've got to present effectively. And I will tell you efficiently. Learn how to effectively present a home selling strategy that resonates with the seller. And you need to build confidence, not only your own confidence here in the beginning, but confidence in the potential seller. Because sometimes you're gonna go into that listing appointment and it's not certain that they're gonna work with you. It's not, you might have to win them, right? Now, sometimes you're gonna go into a listing appointment and you already know they're gonna go with you. That's great. Again, I'm gonna tell you, follow a procedure. Here's where I see some agents fall down or trip. Let's just put it that way. It's family or friends. And they feel like they don't need to do everything that they would do for a stranger. Don't do that. Don't do that because you can get yourself in trouble because you don't go through everything with them because you think, oh, it's my brother, it's fine. And then something goes wrong and you'll say, but you didn't tell me this could happen because you skipped some steps because, hey, it's my brother. So don't fall into that trap of, I don't have to be as much of a professional because it's family and friends. That's probably when you need it the most because I'm going to tell you this. You should always think twice before you say you want to do business with family and friends. Does anybody else have a friend or two like I do that I love, but they're crazy? I would never work with them in any job situation, but I love them dearly and they're so much fun. You have that friend?
They would be on fire, I feel like.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. Gold star, double gold star for Jeff today. So, does that make sense? And then I'm gonna tell you this also, don't get your panties in a bind and ruin a relationship because they decided to use someone else. I actually, one of my growth clients ended a relationship because he said they knew I'm an agent. They knew, and we even talked about it, and they went with somebody else. I ended that relationship, he said. And I said, well, that was your choice. Then it must have not been too much of a relationship, but think about it. Do you want to lose a relationship over a transaction? Most of us don't. But be careful because you're gonna, nobody, as agents, and as the world, but especially as self-employed, and we're in sales, but I like to say we're in service, not sales. Because we bring service, we don't sell. We can't force people to buy and sell. But you are not owed business, you have to earn business. And that even goes to past clients. You're gonna have past clients and you're gonna say, oh, they're gonna use me. And maybe you haven't been so good about staying in contact with them and they use somebody else. And I've heard agents say, that agent stole them from me. Probably not. You probably put them up for adoption because you ignored them. So again, you're not owed business, you earn business. Because I've seen people react very poorly to losing business. Because they thought it was a guarantee because they'd worked with them before. So you don't want to do that. Do not. Come here, Miss Whitney. That's something for you. Okay. Preparing for the listing appointment. Make sure you have all your essential materials. What do you bring? What are you going to bring to a listing appointment? How are you going to do the presentation? Is it that, now I always provide a seller with a printed something for them to keep. For me to leave, for them to keep. But is this what you're going to go off of that you review with them? Or are you going to do it on your laptop and it needs to be more in presentation form? Think this through. Think through, how am I going to sit down and do this? Where do we do it in the house? Where do you think the most ideal place is? It depends on the house, but kitchen table or dining room table, one or the other. The sofa, the living room, it's too hard to get seated and have your stuff. I find. So you wanna say, can we sit at the kitchen table or the dining room table? It'll give us more space. Again, you have to know how this is gonna go, so you can direct the sellers, otherwise they'll say, hey, let's go in here. And it's the living room, and they're way over there, and you're over here, and the seating's not good, and they can't, yeah. That makes sense. So don't leave that up to them. You have to be in control of this appointment. In a friendly and inviting way. You don't want to be bossy. We're in here, come here, sit down. So you're gonna want that listing presentation and all the materials that you deem you should take. I remember in the preview appointment, what did I say you should do? What, take a picture of the house? I take pictures of the rooms so I won't forget them while I'm doing my comps. So I can't guarantee I'm gonna remember everything. And I'm taking notes while I'm in that house. Actually, on MLS, there is a form that's called an input form. And it's this long form that gives you everything that you could input into MLS with a listing. I usually on the preview had that printed up and on a clipboard and would take my notes on there because I could check off different rooms and what have you. So it's called an MLS input form. It's a little archaic, but it worked for me. Again, figure out how you can capture as much information in a short period of time. And this was me just being able to check off things on there. And then I'm going to research the property. And that's going to be our activity today. Researching the property, not comps. Researching the property. You should do some serious research before you go on that listing appointment. We'll talk about it. We're going to review tax records, previous listings, when it was previously sold. If we know that it's been a FSBO because they expired history, you're not going to see FSBO history on MLS, but I'm hoping that they've told me that they remember. One of my questions is, have you thought about selling your home yourself? In the pre-qualification, they said, yeah, we tried it before. And I would have asked some more questions about that. Those initial communications. So what I'm going to do in preparing for the listing appointment, I'm going to confirm my preview. I'm going to confirm my listing appointment with them. Because sometimes wires get crossed or sometimes something comes up last minute and they need to reschedule or what have you. So I am always confirming those appointments that I've already scheduled. And I'm also making certain, did you receive my homework, the homework? Did you have any questions about the homework? I want to know if they have questions about the homework before I get to the listing appointment, because in that homework, they've needed to get to me in advance. Like I need to know their mortgage balance. Why do I need to know that? How the heck am I going to prepare a seller's estimated proceeds worksheet if I don't know how much they owe on this house, at least approximately? You're going to have to get into people's business, and it's not going to always feel comfortable. Matter of fact, did anybody go look at the power tool with the pre-listing information? Okay, if you didn't, go on and look at my pre-listing information sheet, the homework I send to them. In that homework, there's some hard questions that you have to know that so many agents avoid asking because it's kind of uncomfortable. Caitlin, I'm going to ask you, do you have any liens on your property? Have you filed for bankruptcy? Do you have any outstanding marital or child support? Are there any tax liens on this property? Why do I need to know all of that? It affects how it sells, if I can even sell it. There's an IRS tax lien. That seller does not have the ability to sell that house without coming to an agreement with the IRS on how they're gonna get their money first. Or there will be no sale. You do not want that to be a surprise when you're under contract. Because what did I say last week? Sellers do one of three things. They don't know what to tell us. So they might not know to tell you about that HELOC, that home equity loan. It may not connect with them that that's really tied to the house and has to be paid off when they sell the house. Because you know, many companies give them a little credit card when they get a HELOC. So they can go shopping for, if it's, like, a lot of people use their HELOC for home renovation projects. So they go and they use that. So they think of it almost more as a line of credit, which it is, but it's tied to the house and must be paid off when you sell the house. But not all consumers know that. Don't assume they know that. So sometimes they don't know what to tell us. That's why we have to give them homework and ask them those hard questions. Sometimes they're embarrassed to tell us. That's another thing why family and friends may not use you. What if they went into pre-foreclosure and never had told anyone? Well, guess who's going to find out? You will. And that might not be something that they want you to know. And then the third is they might be trying to hide something. It's going to come out, but it may come out later, like when you're under contract and you find they have tax liens. It's going to come out when they do a title search. But what have you done to that buyer and that buyer's agent going under contract and finding out maybe the seller can't even sell? And then what'd you just do to yourself? How much time did you spend with those people? How much money did you spend with those people? And you're not even going to be able to sell their house. Does that make sense? So you've got to do your due diligence. Yes, it sounds so exciting when they say, I want to sell my house. And too many agents jump and don't qualify the listing all the way before they commit to taking that listing. Because as Caitlin remembered from last week, not all business is worthwhile business. It's not. But we get so excited. Okay, this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to go online here in a minute, but we're going to do MLS due diligence review. Like I said, this is not a CMA. But you're going to go into MLS and gather information like RPR. Has anybody gone into, so on MLS, if you are not aware, MLS subscribes to a lot of third-party resources that you have access to. RPR would be one of them. Realist is another one. Cloud CMA. Those are all third parties that you have access to that you help pay for with your dues that can be really good tools for you. Make sense? So has anybody been in RPR? Yeah? Yeah? Some people have been in RPR? So I love going into RPR and Realist. Those are the two I definitely always go into when I'm doing research, because you could find out a wealth of information. We'll go on there in a minute and just kind of look around. I'm looking for red flags. I'm looking for, it may say it's in pre-foreclosure. I might be able to find that information. I'm also looking at mortgage. You know, it'll show you the loans it has outstanding. So here's some things, patterns I look for. If I see a seller has refinanced their house over and over again, and it doesn't look like it was tied to getting better rates, I'm going to be worried that did they do that to get equity out of their house and maybe they have little to no equity in their house. So I'm looking for red flags like that because that could mean something. Now, it could mean that, yeah, the interest rate went down and they refinanced and got, you know, a better rate. Good for them. All of us should have done that during those magical unicorn years of like 3%. I did it. but I'm looking for anything, I'm looking for owner discrepancies. Did you know that the person, Jody, who says they want to sell their house may not own their house? It may not be in their name. And you'll be like, how did somebody do that? Happens every day. Happens every day. Somebody, especially with, maybe with a deceased parent. Maybe it's in probate. You gotta know if it's in probate. Because if they don't have the authority to move forward, if there is not a personal representative assigned by the court and the estate is in probate, then there's nobody who has the authority to sell this house. And I've seen houses listed. The agent didn't do their due diligence, didn't ask enough questions to find out. There are times that you are going to do preliminary, you're gonna ask the title company to do preliminary title work. Because things feel a little messy. And you're like, I don't know if we really know the clear story here. So that you can find out if there are any surprises. I started doing that after getting a very rude surprise. I got a listing. It was referred to me by another agent. She had had that listing over 300 days. Back then, that wasn't so unusual. It could happen. It wasn't. It was a vacant house. It was a second house. These people had more than enough money and they bought a house here in Kansas City because their daughter, they thought was going to go to medical school and they wanted a house for it. Dang, that's nice. Right? And so they weren't really serious in the last 300 days to sell their house. And she knew they said they want to try something new and go with another agent. She said, and she was still on good terms with them. She said, could I refer someone to you? And they said, sure. And she referred me. So I get that house. They were ready to do something now. And that's the hard part in a buyer's market. Does anybody remember me saying sometimes you want to be the second agent in? Because they're not listening the first round. It's kind of like
They're running lessons with the first one.
yeah, sometimes we don't listen to people when they say things to us. We have to learn a lesson before we start to hear what we should have been listening to. It applies to kids, spouses, partners, even parents. So, I got him to do some painting. I got him, it was a very cold looking place. Tile, even although the tile was lovely, but it was all hard surface on the first floor. So it looked very cold. The colors were grays and blacks, so no warmth to it. So we got him to change and take down some of the really, cold wallpaper and borders and stuff like that. Got him to warm it up, got him to reduce the price. I got an offer in 10 days because now he was ready to do something. It was cash. Quick close, quick close. Guess how quick you can close a cash deal? What do you think the fastest is? How? Yeah, 7 to 10 days is the very fastest because title has to do their part, even if there's no loan involved. So I don't think you can close in 3 days. I mean, you got to talk to that title company if it's going to be, if they're wanting less than 7 to 10 days, you're going to have a heart-to-heart with the title company to see if they can even pull that off. Because maybe they can, maybe they can't. And then I get a call from the manager of the title company, not my closer, she's Kristen. I'm like, hi. She says, did you know that there are over $600,000 in liens on this property? It was a right under $400,000 house. I'm like, nope. Yeah, I call my seller, I'm like. I have a little bit more fun than that. Again, I sometimes tell you my head voice. I share with you my head voice. And he says, oh, that's no problem. I knew there'd probably be something. I think those are business liens. I'll get my attorney. He'll go down to Topeka and get those removed. And he did. But here's the thing. That listing agent had that listing for 300 days and never knew that. And then I assumed that she had asked the right questions, so I didn't. And luckily, we were able to get it all done in 10 days, but I was holding my breath like nobody's business, because that was a really bad surprise. So after that, when I started working with people that I didn't know anything about, and I got much better at asking the questions. That's why I've got those hard questions on the pre-listing information that I send them with their homework. But for some of them, if I still felt like we weren't getting the real info, I would request a preliminary title search because I want surprises. And it doesn't cost anything, or it hasn't in the past. I don't know, some title companies may charge, but usually there's no charge. So I'm looking at all of that. I'm examining the history. I'm looking back at the old pictures. Have you guys looked at the old pictures and then seen what the house looks like now? Because here's another thing, sellers will say, yeah, I did all those updates. No, they didn't. When they bought it was already updated, because I saw the pictures. So don't be telling me, don't take credit, but it happens all the time. Yeah, we did those updates. No, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. Okay. Yeah, that's my update, or I put some paint on. That's my update. So let's come out of this. I'm gonna stop the share online so that we can go into MLS, okay? Did you guys know that this is something that you should be doing when you're looking at a listing, that comps are not the only thing we are doing when we're getting ready for a listing appointment. And I'll share screen back here in a minute. As soon as I get on. Okay, you can tell how long an agent's been in the business if they don't have numbers. That means long. Oh my God, I'm so glad I don't have numbers. No, that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So let's just, I'm going to, one of the things I'd recommend is, oh, come on. Okay. I'd move your dashboard, the market watch up here. Look, oh, already in the last 7 days, 704. That's more than last week. Anybody know how many houses came on the market last week? And you should. 6. Was it like 658? Well, this is all of MLS. Back on the market, I'm always this is your indicator of how the market is doing. I'm looking at expireds. I'm looking at contingents. Contingents are holding steady, but they did go up to the 50s when a couple months ago they were in the 30s. Contingent offers mean seller's probably been on the market a little bit or has an exception property and wasn't getting any offer, so then they'll entertain a contingent offer from a buyer. I'm looking at all that. So let's just go new to the market. Here's a little game I play that I would recommend that you guys do on a regular basis. Maybe not every day, but I want to look at new listings. And so I like to have the most fun. So I always start with the most expensive first, because why not? Right? Why not? And I can tell you that I'm pretty sure these first two have acreage because I see Archie and Raymore. And then I see the price and I'm like, that's probably got some land to it, right? So let's try to find something, and I'm not going to look at pre-MLS because it probably doesn't have all the information. So here's one not too far from us in Prairie Village. I don't know where Granthurst is. Okay. Let's look at this over here. Let me share screen with Zoomers. So I want you to think of yourself as like a private. Anybody like that idea? I'm kind of nosy. Matter of fact, my daughter sent me a TikTok yesterday of this dad with binoculars trying to read a note on a neighbor's door, and the voice is saying, "You know how I got to be so nosy. You know how I got to be so nosy. It's my dad." Well, in my case, it's me. Well, no, my husband's pretty nosy too. So for me, and I also like to do research, so it goes hand in hand, right? So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna go into RPR. And if you have not logged into RPR, it will make you log in. It is the same as your MLS login. And each property should, no, I take that back, I lied. It's not. It's not. So you have to come up with your own login for it. And every property should have a page in RPR. Also, you can look at properties across the United States on here and get some background information. It's not the same as MLS in an area, but you can get a lot of information. So let's just look here at all the information that you can get here. You can get property information, map location, market trends, refined value, CMA, neighborhood, my updates. I'm looking at this because I'm going to use some of this for my listing presentation, and I'm going to use some of it for when I have the listing live. In every single one of my listings, I had a notebook, a home book. And in the home book, I'd have neighborhood information from something similar to RPR for buyers to be able to look at. Okay. So now an RVM is what they say is the estimated value. I don't like the comps that RPR usually pulls. I look at that, but I don't believe it. Yeah, well, that's because that was a tear down. I can guarantee it's Prairie Village. This is 1.3 million. And so the former value is tied to it being before it was torn down. Yeah, so renderings. So maybe we'll go to a different property because this one isn't going to give me what I want. I want history. Oh, look at this one. Kansas City, Missouri, Concord. Oh, kind of cool, huh? Ooh, nice. Ah, look at that porch. I love a good front porch. So I want something with history. Okay. So it's going to give me all these property facts, and then you're going to see public facts may be different than listing facts. Why is that? Why is it saying it has 6 bedrooms on the listing facts and the public facts only say 5? Yep, maybe they did an addition without pulling permits. The county has no idea of any updates inside of that house unless permits were pulled or they got caught. Sometimes permits crews drive around because they're seeing who's doing what and shouldn't be. Full baths are different. Total baths are different. Partial baths are different. Living square footage is different. So again, this is telling me things before I even go on this listing appointment that I've got to confirm because we've got some discrepancies. So I'm looking at that Looking at basement, oh, so they finished some basement is what I'm assuming. Look at that. Yep. So I'm looking at all of this. Interior features, I'm looking at all of this. Because it's gonna tell me things that I need to look for when I go into that preview and look at that house. To make sure this looks about right. I've got to confirm, never, ever, ever. Take the information from MLS. And copy it and use only that for your listing without confirming those. What did I tell you about MLS? How good is the data?
Only as good as whoever puts it.
Only as good as the agent who enters it in. And there are agents who make mistakes. There are agents that are lazy. And here's what I want you to always think about when you're putting information in on one of your listings. You might think, I'm just going to put what's required, just the bare minimum. Well, can I tell you that our data on MLS, since it's only as good as the agent who puts it in, then if you don't put in robust data, then you won't have that when you're trying to do comps and other things. Does that make sense? So don't be the lazy or shortcut agent and putting facts and information into MLS because you're hurting yourself and you're hurting other agents.
Also, like, people are doing search it, it's like, you can't, like, the more you put in, the less you find sometimes, the more people fill out, like, the more able, the more better.
Totally. That's why people say, yeah, my clients want a fenced-in backyard. Well, good luck, because I will tell you, probably half of listing agents don't even mark that. So you're gonna have to go in manually. And also remember, I've said this before, but when you're doing an MLS search, less is more. This is not an intuitive platform. It is not Google. It's not gonna read your mind. It's gonna go exactly with what you put in there. And it stays that strict in its search. So if you get highly detailed, and it's gotta have a partially finished basement and a fenced-in backyard and all of these details to the exact, that you're just all of those fields, because there's a lot of them, right? You'll be checking them off left and right. You'll probably come up with a goose egg on your search. Nothing. Nothing. So you got to be broad to get searches. I'm looking at the public records. I'm looking now at the legal description. Is this what I'm seeing? I want to make sure, because that's going to be important. Remember, we sell properties by their legal description, not their street address. So not only does the street address have to be correct, so does the legal description. Schools, that is something you can put into MLS, and it is very helpful for agents. A lot of people don't, they'll put in the minimum. And then I'm seeing owner facts. Is this who called me? Is this who I'm talking to? Who says they're the seller? Maybe, maybe not. And if it's not, then I'm like, ooh, it's telling me. Also, here's an interesting fact. I want you to look at their address as Merriam. What's the property address? Okay, so normally I would say, oh, it's probably a rental property, but I don't think so at that. Or what happened? Did they flip it? I don't know. But do you see what I'm seeing? That would be, okay, got to check that out. Because their mailing address does not match the property address, and usually they always do, unless it's an investment property. So I got to know what's going on. I'm going to look at the current listing information, then I'm going to look at the public records. Oh. Warranty deed 2001 and 2002. I can see the loans that they got. This is who they originally bought it from. And then they transferred into a warranty deed. So an LLC bought it. They probably did that work to it. And then maybe they decided to live in it. I don't know. Again, see the detective in me? I'm trying, what's the story?
So your thought is that James, like even if things didn't make it clear about this, that James had got his, the owner had got homes.
Mhm.
So then once it's done, he was.
Mhm. Mhm. Then I'm looking at sales and financing. I'm looking at loan event. So here is activity of when it's been on the market. So it was canceled. So it's been on the market before. And then it came back on the market, then it canceled again. See, I'm getting, oh, okay, I gotta figure out what's going on. Why didn't it sell before? What am I walking into?
Are you able to call like other agents that are like listed and be like, do you, what's, I saw this.
You could
what's
see the
deal
listing
with
agent
this?"
on the history and say, hey, can you tell me you have this listing at 123 Main Street? I saw that you had it for a while and then it canceled. What happened? What's the story? Why not? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to know? Is this a seller I could work with that's reasonable, or are we gonna play the same game? Even though that looks like an amazing house, right? Who wouldn't want to say I'm listing that house? But you gotta make sure, is it worth your while? Okay.
I have that going on and I hope they do call.
And that's, oh, hey, that's A-okay. So then I can look at market trends. I can look a lot of different things, but I want you to get on here and get super nosy and see all of the information that you can see. And what does that start to tell you? The story about that property. You want to know, it should make you curious. I make up stories all the time about owners and houses. I think this happened.
When you see interlink transfers. But
When I see what?
the interlink transfer.
Uh-huh.
That just means like, it's still the same owner.
No, they passed it to a family member. Yeah. So let's go out of here. I'm gonna stop the share and we're gonna go back to the PowerPoint. Did that get you thinking about some stuff you hadn't thought about before on a listing? On how it's not just the CMA, that's important. Okay. We're gonna prepare. We're gonna build rapport and set the tone. Right? One of the first things, what did I tell you I did when I went in the door of a listing? I took my shoes off as a sign of respect. And then if they said, no, you can put your shoes back on, I do that. So watch out the socks that you wear, the shoes that you wear. Make sure there's something that you need. Seriously. You have to go on tour on Tuesday and they make you take off your shoes and you're thinking, dang, my socks don't match and I've got a hole in the toe.
I got that recently, like, property then. So it's like.
I know it sounds silly, but it's true. Okay, explain. You're going to, again, in the flow of how this listing appointment's gonna look, you're gonna take them through. Here, I'll go back. I'm sorry. And I forgot my Zoom people. How rude of me. Zoomers, you're too polite. Yeah, but they're too polite. You're supposed to say, Kristen, where's the PowerPoint? You need to explain how the overview of the process of selling the house, right? Because who knows when they last sold their home. So the preparation, you go through the homework that you gave them. Ask if they have any questions. The marketing, you're gonna just give them an outline of your marketing because you'll get into more depth. You're going to talk about setting the expectations of showings. That's in the homework, but a lot of these things you're gonna be repeating. You're gonna feel like a parent with buyers and sellers because you're gonna repeat yourself a lot while you work with them. And remind them of things. Remember, we talked about this before. This is the time when this happens and that happens. Then you're gonna give them just an overview of the closing. Marketing strategy, you've got to decide, what do you offer? Now, some of these things as a new agent, you may not be ready to pay for drone footage, right? But, or 3D virtual tours, I don't know. But you've got to know, what is your marketing strategy? What are you going to be offering? That's why you have to think of that in advance.
There's a great app called PUBTACA, PUBTACA.
Yes.
To do like a rendering of the floor plan. You can pay for more for it to do it 3D, or you can add stuff to it, but it's the free part of it's really.
Also, most of photographers, or many of the photographers, will do a floor plan too as part of their services. So what is your marketing? Again, you guys got to be thinking about this now. What can you afford right now? And you should all be able to afford professional photographs. Please don't let me see one of these on your listing. Please, please, please. 'Cause I will come find you. I feel like that's the bare minimum we owe a seller, right? Take them more in depth of what it looks like. Again, just give them an overview. Don't go into huge details about from contract to close, but you want to give them, start getting them familiar with what that's going to look like when we go under contract. You're going to present the CMA and pricing strategy, and that's what we're going to be talking about on Thursday, because you guys are going to practice scripts, so you can know, how do I present a CMA? Do you just put it in front of them and say, here, look at this? How do you guide them through that CMA to get them to buy into your pricing strategy? How? And not just one way works for every personality type. You're going to review the estimated proceeds worksheet. So you should already have that mostly filled out. Because you've asked them the pre-qualifying questions and had them do their homework. So you've got that information to give them numbers. To give them numbers. Because they have to know, and you have to know, do they have the money to sell this house and pay my commission? There are agents who jump on it and take a listing, and the seller, they find out, cannot even afford to sell this house, that they might have to bring money to the closing table. So if somebody's been in a house less than a year or two, then I'm going to worry about, do you have enough money to sell? Did we have enough appreciation? Did you have a big enough down payment? Are we going to be okay to sell this house? So you want to show them, and also you want to build a proceeds worksheet that clumps up all the potential costs, not just what they're obligated to pay. Like, I want to put in their home warranty that the buyer might ask for. The buyer might ask for closing costs. Buyer might ask for buyer commission. Buyer might ask for repairs. I'm gonna put that all in there and say, these are negotiable, but you got to be aware of them. And then I'm going to present the listing agreement. Oh, that feels so uncomfortable. Right? How comfortable are you in presenting one, the estimated proceeds sheet and the listing agreement?
That's like really clear expectations, and to be clear.
Yes.
It's after you do it.
You do your prep and then it's.
Yeah. But you have to get good at this. It's not, I doubt it comes naturally for everybody. So you got to know, and you also have to sell that this is a partnership. That is the number one thing that you have to make clear in expectations to your seller. We are partners in selling your house, and I can't do it without you. Because the seller has control of three really crucial things, and that is, one, the ultimate list price. Two, the condition in which we go on the market and the condition for showing, and availability and access for showings. If you have a seller who will not cooperate on those three things, then you might as well visualize that both of your hands are tied behind your back, and I don't know how you're gonna sell that house. And do you want, because that's not a partner, is it? And then we ask for the business. How comfortable are you gonna be asking for the business? Many times we wait for them to say they wanna hire us. We don't ask for the business. We gotta ask for the business. You have to address any concerns, or do they have any remaining questions or objections? Okay, I'm gonna post your homework. But your homework is going to be putting together the personalized listing. I have the, in your homework, there is a link to the template in Canva where you can make one in Command. You want this because on Thursday, you will be practicing. Real live practice. Okay?
Have it ready.
Yep. Any questions? Okay, it's time for the business meeting. All right. I'll post the homework and then there is a quiz and the quiz will drop in a couple of minutes on the Facebook page. Okay, bye Zoomers.